Tell us your name, where you're from, and how old you
My name is Jared Bourgeois. I'm from Bay St. Louis, Mississippi. I'm 34 years old.
are. Nice. What's your sobriety date, Jerry?
My sobriety date, I don't have the actual date. I just know that it's in October. I can look it up. It's in October sometime of 2010.
2010.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got some time on your.
Yeah.
Well, tell us what you do right now.
All right, I'm an addiction counselor. So I have a business called Escape Addiction,
Yeah.
where I'm the director of that, and I counsel people. I take people through these courses that I created off of my own lived experience called Addiction 101.
Uh huh.
So I give them a lot of life skills, a lot
Okay.
of coping skills. We go over a lot of different topics because almost anything can trip us up in early recovery. So we cover it all.
That's awesome. So, what drugs have you used in the past?
Oh, the better question would be what drugs didn't I use, and maybe just a couple. I covered them all. I started out using pot and alcohol and tobacco at a very young age, probably 7, 8 years old, and I went on to pills. In teenage, 11, 12 years old, I was into pills, hallucinogens.
Okay.
So by 12, 13, 14, started getting into cocaine, ecstasy,
Yeah.
and then methamphetamine shortly after that,
Hmm.
Oxycontins.
So, how did in your addiction? How did it progress? Like, where did it come from, and then where did it lead you to?
Okay, yeah. So it's started with trying to fit in with my older brother and all his friends, trying to be accepted.
Hmm.
I developed this mask of trying to do stupid things to impress them and win over their acceptance, and that's where it started, really. Like I said, 7, 8 years old. I found them smoking some pot in the woods behind my house. They were like 11, and I said, "Hey, let me hit that." I thought it was a cigarette, and I was like, "Hey, let me hit that." And they were like, "Nah, you can't hit this." And I said, "Let me hit it, or I'm gonna go tell mom." So they passed it over to me real quick, and that's where it began. Um, by the time I was in my teenage years, school was a joke for me. I was very book smart, so it came easy. I wasn't very challenged very much, so I could go in and fall asleep on my desk and still make A's and the schools I was at. So I was just very much class clown mentality. I didn't have any clue what life was about, and I was numbing my emotions. I had severe anxiety, and and that's why Xanax was probably one of my preferred drugs. If I had to pick one, I kept them all the time, and I hated that feeling of nervousness, anxiety. So I masked it for a long time. So and through my teenage years, I was numbing myself. I wasn't going through the ups and downs of the emotions and figuring out who I was and what my identity was. I was on my own twisted, dark path of destruction, self-destruction.
Where? How did your family handle your addiction?
Um, so my parents, they had already started going through it with my brother, and he had pulled he had snuck by with a lot of his stuff. So by the time they started seeing the same stuff in me, they really wanted to clamp down and control. And what that control was, what I did was rebel. I jerked away. The more they tried to control, the more I jerked away and tried to do my own thing. So probably how I ended up with so many tattoos. But yeah, it didn't work out. There was that control would incite that rage inside of me, and that rage would lead me right back out to the drugs every time.
Did you have a bottom moment?
I had many bottoms. I think the last when I finally got clean, I had a lot of bottoms. Man, I could think back in my mind and think I can go to a lot of dark and messed up places and pain and misery, and I used that. I used that often in early recovery when that impulse would strike. I would go walk back through all the negatives. So over the time, I trained my brain to only remember the negative because towards the end of my addiction, there was no positive. It was just pure misery. But I think I can mention a few bottoms. I had over 12 felonies, so I was arrested many times. I was on the run from U.S. Marshals for armed robbery for about 4 or 5 months. I took a train out to California. I got this homeless man to buy my ticket, threw my cell phone away and stuff. And how I knew I didn't even I finally contacted the last girl whose house I was at, and she was like, "You EMFer?" She said, "You had the U.S. Marshals over here looking for you." And then I called my parents, and they told me like, "Yeah, the U.S. Marshals are looking for you." And I was like, "Okay." So I stayed out in California, smoked a bunch of pot for about 4 or 5 months, and then finally came back and turned myself in.
Yeah.
No, but when I got clean was in jail for manufacturing methamphetamine. That was a bottom for me. My first son was on the way, and I went balls to the wall on a bender, and that was a whole nother addiction in itself, is manufacturing. A whole nother beast to deal with. I never went to detox, but I locked myself in a behavioral detox because I couldn't quit cooking dope and thinking about it and just obsessing about it. And so whenever I got caught for that, the judge revoked my bond. I couldn't bond out for any amount of money. Thank God he did, because I finally had what I call the shift occurred. I was in there with all these other meth cooks, and they were all talking about the same stupid stuff. It's just the same regurgitated conversations over and over. And I started separating myself and saying, you know what, I don't want this anymore. I don't want this life. I started seeing it for what it was, misery. And that's when I started doing Bible study with this group of gentlemen. I started working out. I started writing in there, which I didn't know was the beginning of these courses I teach today. And I still do those 3 things today. I on an almost daily basis. Like, I hit the gym about 5 days a week. That's my self-care time. I got to do that for me, especially in this work, or I'll get burnt out. We got to take that time for ourselves, you know. I still do my Bible study. That's my armor. I got to put that on daily. And some days that's still a battle for me. You know, the enemy doesn't want me opening that book. And he wants me sucked into the world. Often I'll open my laptop when I know I need to open that book first. And I'll be sitting there on the computer, and I'll constantly be seeing it. I'm like, all right, I know, God, I know. And then I'm like, all right, finally I just close the laptop and I open it up. And man, that is what's truly erased that anxiety I spoke of. That the truth in God's word set me free from that. It's like he removed it. Like, it doesn't even exist anymore. I might get nervous doing something like this, or I do a lot of public speaking. I might get nervous doing those meeting somebody new, but guess what? They are too. So I just embrace that as a natural emotion that God gave me that I need to feel in those moments, right? And usually if I'm doing public speaking or something like this, I'll pray. I'll pray up beforehand, and that very much helps me to transition in a lot smoother.
So was your transition only, like your sober time only in jail, or did you go to a rehab?
So I've been to 3 treatment centers. First one, I was 18, and it was just to avoid a penitentiary. I got set up by somebody for selling an eighth of marijuana, 3.5 grams. Yeah, set up for that. But I had already had all these other charges previously. From when I was 17, I had a bunch of credit card fraud, burglary of an auto. So I had 4 felonies already, and the judge looked at that and he said, you know what, you're going to go to a RID program at Parchment, which is the state penitentiary, and or you're going to go to rehab. So, go to rehab. And so I wasn't going for I was by no means ready at 18. But after I got out of there, another 4 years in it fully, way worse, hardcore intravenous use by that time. That was some deep, dark places you go to from intravenous drug use. And so by the time I was 22, I was ready, and I had started at 7, 8 years old. So after about almost 17 years, I was ready to call it quits. And I asked my mom, I said, hey, can you find a place away from here? I want to get out of here, get out of my hometown, get out of this trap. And she found this place through Dr. Dobson's Focus on the Family out in California, called the Riverside, the ranch, the Sunrise Recovery Ranch. Went there for 30 days, and then I signed up for 6 months of their sober living, because I knew I was just scratching the surface at 30 days. And so I went through there 6 months at Sober Living by the Sea in Newport Beach, California, and it was amazing. We got these beach cruiser bikes, and they'd give us a gift card to the grocery store for, I think it was like 50 or 75 bucks a week, and we had meetings all the time, 12 steps, meetings, sponsor. I was gung-ho, dove in it, and was fully invested in it, and I was in this cool Teach program, which it's called Teach was the acronym, but they basically loaded us up in we called the druggy buggy, and they brought us to Mission Viejos, like a 30-minute ride up into the mountains. So I loved that ride alone too. It was beautiful, and so they brought us to Saddleback College. So I was able to first get my first 9 credits in college after I had flunked FA'd 3 semesters, not going to class. And so I started getting a little confidence in myself. Wow, I can actually do something with my life. And that's where it started. I ended up getting 10 months. Well, I got out of there, and me and my wife got apartments right above. She got an apartment right above mine in this apartment. And so that 7 months after I finished there, turned into 3 more months, and then relapsed out there and fell hard. Like, just went right back to the intravenous use. Went to a bunch more deep, dark places, and then we moved back here and kept going with it. That's whenever I started manufacturing it, and I would go on benders for like 6 or 8 months, at a time. People wouldn't see me; I'd just disappear. And so 2 more years. By the time I was 24, that's when I got locked up in jail, and that's where I got it finally.
So now that you're in a position of sobriety and happiness, what has sobriety brought you?
Everything. It brought me a clear mind. My brain healed, so I was able to reconnect with that vocabulary where I used to get lost for words all the time. It was very frustrating. It brought me peace of mind. It brought me to God, which is everything. It brought me to the truth in His Word, which set me free, and knowing that I'm not shackled to all those sins of my past. I'm forgiven, and it brought me into the purpose on why He created me, which is the most important thing I think for us, is to finally figure out what we're here for and to start doing it. And
what is your purpose now?
my purpose is to help as many people as I possibly can, and those forgotten people in society, those people that are cast away, those people that say, there's no hope for them. Yeah, I think there is.
Is it tough to look back and see, who that guy was and who you are now?
It's refreshing to me, to be honest. It used to be. But now I fully embrace that forgiveness through Christ, and it's not. I know that everywhere that I went, and all those messed up things I did, I feel bad for it, and I've made amends at every chance that I could to those people, and to myself, and I truly forgive myself, because I'm forgiven by Him, and I accept that gift of forgiveness that He's given me, and I know that wasn't me. That was what the enemy wanted me to be. He fully had me in his grips, and I was so blinded by him I didn't even realize what was happening. He had his blinders on me, so I didn't even know. But I used to say things like, I am the devil, and saying things like that in my addiction, I gave him so much authority over my life that I didn't even realize I was doing. And he had his way with me, but that was who he wanted me to be. I fully embrace who God wants me to be. And man, I love the person God wants me to be. I truly cherish this, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. There's nothing. I take my recovery very seriously. If somebody at this point in my 10th year in recovery, somebody tried to come and throw that stuff at me, you might see the flesh jump out of me. I might would punch them right in the mouth, because they know they're trying to trip me up and trying to drag me back into misery. But at the end of the day, that's what I got to remember. Those people they're miserable and they're dead inside. And so if they're spinning lies and manipulations or trying to suck me into that bitterness, I need to pray for them, because they're suffering and they're struggling. And I have that happen from time to time. I'll hear a client that I've worked with or something that is spinning some kind of lies about me being on dope or something like that. And I hear this stuff sometime, and I just it cracks me up, to be honest. I'm like, wow, and then I go and I step in a prayer for them. I'm like, for them to be lying like this and making things up, they got to be suffering inside.
So when you meet someone that is suffering, that's still out there and is in pain, what would be your first advice to that person?
Surrender. Wave that white flag in the air. You don't have this on your own. You're trying to battle the enemy, and you're going to lose every time on your own. We're not meant to fight that battle. In whatever way you can, start trying to reach out and connecting with God. Reach out and connect with other people in recovery, people that have some clean time. Whether that be several months. That's good for them to reach out with different variations of people with different levels in recovery. So go to meetings. That's a great place to do that. Work the 12 steps. Get a sponsor. Humble yourself. Don't be so prideful. That pride is going to kill you. That's what I would tell them. that pride is going to eat at your soul, and it's going to make you feel this weight of shame, and it's going to end up killing you.
Death threat. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And tell us about your business. Where can people contact you?
So I have a website, escapeaddiction.net. Got a lot of stuff on there. Thanks to a good friend of mine, G. Ardino Group, I want to mention him. He does a lot of amazing things. If you're ever thinking about reinvesting in yourself or in a business, I would go with him. So he's set up, and he's helping me with starting everything for the Freedom Lighthouse, which is another project I'm working on, which is a sober living house for men. And everything's in place for that. We have board of directors, we have our mission statement, policies and procedures, bylaws, 501c3 nonprofit status. And we're going to be very transparent. We're going to have a donor tracking page where if you donate to us, you can go and follow your donation and say, oh, that's where it went, that's cool. And then we're going to make these cool crosses for our donors, have the guys coming through the treatment program make these cool crosses. And we got a really cool treatment program, I must say, that I've designed with the help of God and some other people. It's going to be really awesome for them. Escape Addiction is an outpatient center where I see people on a very regular basis. So if they want, they can contact me at 228-342-6883. They can come into my office, but I also do Zoom sessions and people if they live further away. I encourage people. I've caught some grief about that. People like, well, because my friend made an ad for me and said, escape your addiction without leaving your comfort zone. And I know what the insinuation is there by them. He's not in recovery when he made that ad either. But if people have so much fear and anxiety or maybe stuck in that depression, that I can plant that seed and get that ball rolling through Zoom, yeah, I'm very much going to encourage them to get out of their comfort zone and to go to meetings and start connecting with people and networking out.
You think it's important to think outside of the box in recovery?
Yeah, because for number one, the enemy's coming at us from all kind of different angles. He's going to be throwing at us, and when we get good at one part of or aspect of our life, or work on that one character defect, he's circling the wagons around and he's finding the next chink in armor. So there will always be work to be done, and we very much have to think outside of the box for that. But we have to think outside of the box for our life and our goals and what we want to achieve and how we need to achieve that. Sometimes when we're talking about goals, if we have a larger goal in mind, well, what's the smaller goals that are going to lead me to that, or vice versa? If we don't know what the large goal is, well, we can start forming some small goals that are going to make it clear and give us clarity on what the ultimate or larger goal is.
That's awesome. You got a closing word? Anything you want to put out there?
Yeah, man. What I would tell people if they're in it right now, if they're in the depths of addiction, that there's hope. If a bottom of the barrel junkie like myself can make it out and start making something with his life and doing things productive, gaining momentum and getting stronger day by day, then they could do it too. And that's what it's all about. We're not trying to get perfection. We only look to God for perfection. What we're after is progress. Tomorrow, I want to be a little bit better than I was today. All right, and we're gonna wake up and try again each and every day, one day at a time, of course. And that's the main thing. Just as we progress each day, God's gonna wash us a little bit cleaner too. So whenever we reach out to Him, He's gonna come and meet us in the middle. When He sees that effort on our part, and you won't be battling that impulse forever. God will come once He sees you battling it and you trying. One day, it's different times for different people in it, but He's gonna come and remove that impulse one day. So I want people to know it's not gonna be so hard forever. It's gonna get easier.
All right. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.